Hello and welcome to another video of mine. This video today is to talk about a formal complaint that has been made by myself to the BBC. I thought I'd just talk about why I put a complaint in, obviously to the BBC. It can be classed as feedback as well as a complaint, but obviously it could be a mixture of two. Sometimes you can complain about something and it may just be feedback, but sometimes it can be a mixture of both, you see. So I just want to talk about the fact that I've contacted numerous TV channels, news stations in the past, and none of them have responded back to my story request when I've obviously wanted to highlight an important issue that I thought was in the public interest at the time that affects many people across the United Kingdom and obviously out of the United Kingdom as well. So obviously I just want to just go over some of the issues that have obviously come up with the BBC. First of all, the BBC is there for everyone. They have policies that they have to follow and everything, and they have to be inclusive. They've got to follow strict guidelines by directors or whoever. So, because this local news channel is only on roughly about 6:30 in an evening till 7 o'clock, basically they can't respond to every single query that comes through, and but they do encourage people to contact them if there's obviously a story that they think they could cover or whatever. And so obviously it's normal for someone like me to contact them if I think something is in the public interest. So one of the biggest things is to reach the people high up, obviously high up at the top and other people, and that is a process, but obviously highlighting the issues is supposed to do some good or whatever. So I've contacted my local BBC in the past, and they said, obviously I got an automatic email back off them saying that thank you for writing to the BBC, and obviously we appreciate that the comments and the stories that obviously is submitted, but because they receive so many emails and text messages from lots of people that they can't respond to each one individually. However, we will read the email and get back to you if we want to cover your story, and we may be able to include it in your comments in our coverage. If you have a complaint, we'll get back to you within 10 days. Do you need any help and support? Once again, thank you for writing to us. That is one of the automated emails that have come from the news channel. I haven't sent off a story consideration for them to look into to see if it'd be something they'd be interested in covering. And then, having put the complaint in, I was given a case reference number, and it said thanks for contacting the BBC. That obviously the complaint has gone through, and that there were two issues that obviously was raised. One of the issues was that I contacted numerous programmes, obviously through the BBC, and I received no response back from them, even though they have that as a direct communication facility, and that went off as a complaint. Because the whole point of a news station having them sort of facilities onto the web, integrated onto their website, is to make things a lot quicker. And obviously when they're not replying, when you've obviously sent a message, that's where there is a problem. And so obviously I put a complaint in. They failed to obviously reply and respond, And then obviously the other issue was obviously the fact that the BBC didn't think that my passport issue was something that needed to be considered as a public interest issue, meaning that they thought it's not worth putting on TV, it's not worth highlighting, it's not worth letting people at the top know that this is an issue affecting many people in the UK. They don't think it's newsworthy to be covered, and because that is the case, that's what they've obviously said to me. They're saying that obviously it's not something they would be covering, and so on. I've had that response from numerous, obviously, newspapers, national newspapers, as well as local news channels as well. However, when it came to the BBC, that was different, because with the BBC they never replied, and obviously they tell you to assume that if you don't hear back from them, that you can just assume that you're not going to be covered or they're not going to take the story up. So what I can't get my head around is how my story and what I was hoping to achieve wasn't in the public interest, yet something else they're covering is in the public interest, and the difference. So obviously that's why the formal complaint went through to them. So I have got a complaint reference number. I'm not sure if it'll go anywhere or whatever. I can't really reveal too much information at this stage, but all I do know is there were two issues. One is the public interest issue, and then the second one was the lack of communication from the people that have integrated these onto the website of the BBC to encourage faster communication. The thing I'm talking about here is things like WhatsApp, for example. They use WhatsApp, and that's aimed at communicating with them. So they have a designated phone number, and they never reply back to that message. So then the question is, why have it on the website in the first place if they can't respond, and whatever. So thank you for watching this very short video. This was just to talk about the local BBC, the local news, the newspapers, about the public interest issue. They didn't feel that obviously my passport issue was something that was worth covering. So I did highlight to them that that I have a passport in the past. I've gone and lost the passport, and I need a replacement passport. And obviously, in order to get that passport, you have to know someone for a couple of years in order to obtain that passport. So you must know them within a couple of years, and you must also know them in a set criteria. So what jobs they've got and so on. So I can't really be too much specific on that, but I do know that obviously they have to know someone within a set job role and for so long. But there are times when they can use the discretion, and they can obviously look into cases as well. In my case, because I don't know anyone for 2 years plus that has a job in the criteria set out by the government or by the passport office, I'm left without a passport. And then you've got the Equality Act and the human rights legislation. Now, a passport isn't just a passport, it's an identity, it's a national identity, it's a security thing, and it's there for if you want to leave and come back into the country. But it's also important to have anyway, and when you can't get another one, when it's not completely your own fault, obviously the government needs to realise that obviously there is an Equality Act and there is obviously human rights legislation. What that means, having done a course on it, is that the government must make sure that all services that they're offering is catering for health people that have got health issues, that have got disabilities, obviously, whatever. So if they've and I base that as breaching the human rights legislation, because the case would be that because they haven't got an option for people that have got health issues, that don't know someone for 2 years and haven't got anyone to countersign it, they're going to suffer, and the consequences are they will not get another passport, and as a result, they're being obviously they're being told they can't have one because they should know someone for 2 years, which is completely wrong. So, in my opinion, the government should do something about that, and they should obviously make sure that something is in place to comply with the human rights legislation. The people that set it up at the top. So I just want to talk to you about that. Obviously, just go into a little bit of detail. So, if there's a business or there's a service out there and they don't do something they don't accommodate for people or whatever, that's discrimination, and there are laws in place. When a government does it and they fail to accommodate for people that have got health issues, disabilities, isolated people that may not have them people to countersign the passport thing, that's not the fault of the person with a health issue. That's the fault of the government, because they should put something in place to make sure that them people that can't get that done has an alternative option, and that's what I'm trying to say. Now, back in 2023, last year, I did write to the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, and I writ to him, Rishi Sunak, I think his name is. I writ to him last year to the House of Commons, and I sent a letter off to the House of Commons. I managed to get his address through a national prison newspaper back in 2023, and because I got his address, I was able to write a letter to him. As I wrote that letter to him, I was hoping that he would read that letter and potentially try and resolve the issue with the passport issue. Then I thought, well, maybe he would come down and visit and whatever. It was probably a good opportunity or whatever. But unfortunately, the way the policies and procedures work, it's not possible for a Prime Minister to just turn up and meet someone. But the reasoning behind it was quite reasonable. It wants something out of the ordinary for someone to want that to happen. And having watched Look North recently, well, not recently, a while back, there was other people wanting to meet the Prime Minister as well. So they're obviously frustrated with something, needing something solving. And then there's me as well. So I went to the Prime Minister, and then obviously because they never got back in touch with me, I had no communication from him or his office. I had to contact the House of Commons, and as I did so, I was informed that he has got an office, but obviously it's probably gone to the wrong place, and he's probably not received it. And I was advised to write a letter to 10 Downing Street and write directly to the Prime Minister, which I haven't done. But obviously, the letter was in response to the passport issue about the fact that I think that the breach human rights legislation because the government have not taken into consideration people with health issues, disabled people, and people that are isolated. And just because you don't know a teacher, just because you don't know a police officer, and just because you don't know someone in this job for 2 years, you should not be punished for not knowing someone for them periods of time. And that's the government's fault, because the government should make sure that the services they're offering accommodates the health related people as well. So what they should do, in the letter I wrote to Rishi Sunak, the Prime Minister, I asked him to looking at the issue of my case, look at the passport issue, look at why I'm struggling to get someone for 2 years to countersign the application that needed to be signed, and I came up with a solution for him. And that solution, is something that I wanted him to implement. And that would take it won't cost the government to implement it, so they would be able to go ahead and just do it. It would probably take them a week, or a month to get that put into place. So that is obviously one of the things. Having that obviously that solution to that problem. So on that basis, if they'd have read that letter and he thought, well, my solution to that issue could solve all the problems in the United Kingdom for people in the same issue, then obviously it would take less than a month to set up. In my opinion, that's just my opinion. It wouldn't cost the government a penny to introduce it and to set it up, and everyone would benefit from it. Obviously, at the moment, it will be impacting airlines, it will be impacting the travel industry, and it will be impacting elderly people and the most vulnerable, and obviously health-related issues where people haven't got a passport or whatever. So having that right taken back again and saying, well, yes, this can't be right, there is an issue, is important to address. I contacted numerous national newspapers and they said it wasn't in the public interest. It's not something that the public needed to know about in the papers. It's not something that high up needed to know about. And they refused to put an article together in the newspaper, which I thought was quite bad when you compare that to other stories that you see in the newspaper, why that couldn't be put in or whatever. So I do believe there was some sort of concern there. So that's what that is addressing, just talking about the passport issue. And the important thing is to get to people. You have to highlight the issues, you've got to raise the awareness, you've got to contact the news channels. That's what we're supposed to be there for. And when they encourage you to do that and they don't do what they're saying they're going to do, then they're not doing the job properly. And obviously that's where disciplinary action comes in and whatever. Because the people, obviously a business that is operating as a TV station, if they're saying it's not in the public interest, but it is in the public interest, then obviously how are they supposed to know if it is or it isn't? And obviously in that case I believe it is. So from myself, Daniel Hall, obviously I did contact numerous news channels. They had refused, I can confirm they did refuse to put it in the newspapers. It wasn't in the public interest, apparently, and I just want to make that clear, and so on. So this is all linked to trying to get coverage for that issue, and obviously in relation to the BBC and the local news channels as well. So thank you very much for watching this video, and goodbye for now.